Most people think that the crypto market works in a relatively straightforward way. There are small investors, there are big investors, and there is the team that might sell some tokens. But sometimes things aren't as straightforward, and SUI is one of those tokens that behaves quite differently. Have a look at the following comparison. This is CoinMarketCap. It shows the largest cryptocurrencies ordered by their market cap. Now compare that to this list over here. This is CoinGlass. Now those two lists are not necessarily the same. For example, SUI is at number 6 in terms of open interest on the derivatives market. But in terms of market cap, it's quite far down the list. It's at number 17. Now what is open interest? Open interest measures how many bets are currently made on the price on the perpetual futures market. So instead of buying the asset directly on chain or directly via the centralized exchanges, there are only bets usually made with leverage. And because it gives a lot of exposure to the asset in a very simple, cost-efficient way, and market makers have to hedge their exposure, we do see how open interest does indeed also move the spot price. And I think that is what's going on with SUI, and I believe that's what's driving the price action. Have a look at this. This is the SUI futures open interest over time measured in US dollars. And on the 19th of January, we had 1.5 billion with a B worth of bets on the SUI price. Now the direction of those bets was not necessarily always long or short. It was a relatively balanced market. However, when we look at the open interest relative to the SUI price, so the SUI price is now in yellow, there is definitely some kind of connection, right? When there's more bets on the price, when the open interest is going up, then the SUI price tends to be up as well. And of course, when the speculation goes down, then also the price tends to deflate. So it's really, interestingly enough, not necessarily the investors that buy the token directly on chain, but it's the investors that speculate on the price via the futures that move the price. It's not necessarily true for every single crypto asset, but for SUI, I do believe that's the case. Again, because it's the asset with a lot of open interest, while relatively speaking, the market cap isn't really justifying that large of a betting market. Now, what might cause all of that speculation? Is there something fundamentally going on for SUI that would justify potentially getting into the asset? Let's have a look at some data most people are not considering. Now over here, we've got DeFi Llama. So this looks at decentralized finance, and we are comparing different blockchains by their total value locked. So how much capital is currently locked inside the chain? SUI is at number 9, and in the last month, it was the best performing blockchain among the top 10. It grew by 16%, while others tend to stay rather still. So have a look at the total value locked of SUI over time. It tends to now stabilize somewhat, while the entire DeFi sector still continues to rather contract. There are the major blockchains with most trading volume, like Ethereum and Solana and the Binance Smart Chain, and there are the competitors in the second row, and SUI is among those competitors. But within that second row, SUI is doing fine. So in the last 24 hours, we had roughly $115 million worth of trading volume on chain. That compares to only 73 million on Polygon, and Polygon has been around for much longer. It's also more compared to Sonic. Sonic used to be called Phantom, then got rebranded. The technology became more scalable, yet the activity is still smaller than SUI. Of course, this can't compare to, for example, the Binance Smart Chain, right, with 1.3 billion, so 10 times the size of SUI. But still, SUI is doing fine. Have a look at this. Ton only had 4.3 million of trading volume. It's surprising how expensive Ton is, relatively speaking, when we just compare the activity. And now, one of the most important factors with any altcoin is the supply, right? How is the supply growing over time? Because if demand doesn't outgrow supply, then the price has to come down. If, of course, leverage on the derivatives market doesn't expand at the same time. Now, here is the number of circulating SUI tokens over time. And while the token is inflationary, it's not too bad, as in we're going from 3.3 billion to 4.7 billion in the span of 5 years. I don't think that this is what's going to drive the price too much. Now, there was a lot of talk around the unlock in April of 2024. But again, I don't think that this is the main price driver for SOI. Have a look at SOI relative to Bitcoin. This vertical line is that unlock. Yes, there were a few people betting on falling prices before that, and subsequently we still went down, but this single event didn't really move the price that much. This is SOI relative to Bitcoin. It is not the US dollar chart, so we're already removing the macro environment here. Because that's the thing most people don't do, and that's a mistake, right? When Bitcoin goes up, most altcoins go up as well. When Bitcoin goes down, most altcoins go down. Thus, the relative performance to Bitcoin is what really matters. And that's what we see in this chart. It seems like SOI tends to be trading in somewhat of a range. Sometimes we are high, sometimes we are low. Currently, we are somewhere in the middle. It seems like we are rather deflating right now, as in the momentum isn't that great for SOI. Now let's have a look at the on-chain usage. This is the number of daily transactions over time. This starts in 2023 and there's no real long-term growth. We do see sometimes those spikes. This might be deployments of bots. This might be test transactions. There's no real clear growth. Here's the number of daily active accounts. We do see some growth here, but it's not necessarily clean and constant. As in, again, potentially some manipulation, some automated account creation as well. And here's a chart I like the least. This is the number of newly created coins over time. There was quite a bit of activity in October of 2024, but since then, this tends to decline. October of 2024 was around here. So the price still expanded a bit afterwards. But as you know, I think it's the perpetual futures that actually move the price of SOI. Now, I have my doubts that the rally in the last few days will continue because overall, altcoins still tend to underperform Bitcoin. It seems like investors in general are still risk off. Because have a look at this. This is total 3. This is the market cap of all the altcoins that are not Bitcoin and Ethereum. And we actually saw zero growth in the last 3 to 4 years. Bitcoin moved from around 60k to above 100k. We didn't see that growth in the market cap of the altcoins. Now the problem is that also during that time the number of altcoins grew. So the average price performance is even worse than what we see here. New tokens got launched and even the existing tokens got expanding token supply. So the market cap can stay stable when the price gets cut in half but the supply doubles, right? When suddenly half of the supply goes to the team. If something like this happens and the price goes down to the same magnitude, nothing happens to total 3. But the average retail investor definitely got screwed. So this is actually showing a more bullish picture than what's happening in the pockets of the average altcoin investor. Since December of last year, the altcoin market went down by 32%. And at the same time, Bitcoin dominance went up. Bitcoin as a share of all of crypto continues to expand. And I believe this will continue likely until we hit the 70% again. In the past, when Bitcoin dominance was close to 70%, that's when we saw the altcoin rallies. That's when it makes sense to buy altcoins. When we are not at that high level in Bitcoin dominance, I think it's better to just bet on falling altcoin prices. Because let's be realistic, most altcoins do worse than Bitcoin most of the time. If we want to have the odds in our favor, it's better just to bet on falling prices and trying to pick the needle in the haystack. This is how that looks like when we try to pick the needle in the haystack. Most things are red and just a few altcoins are green. And as long as we avoid those clearly bullish alts, we have the odds in our favor, right? If we bet on falling prices of all of those altcoins, we tend to make money. Since Bitcoin hit 100k roughly, I've been talking about betting on falling altcoins on this channel. And that's why a lot of community members made regular gains with this. Now, not every trade is bullish, of course. Sometimes there are losses, but in general, right, as prices decline and as most altcoins go down, we tend to make money. And those are just some examples of that. Some altcoins underperform Bitcoin Bitcoin very consistently. For example, this here, this is balancer relative to Bitcoin. And again, the reason is clear. There are not a lot of perpetual futures that manipulate the price too much, but there is an expanding token supply. Thus, a balancer relative to Bitcoin goes down and we can make money when this continues further in the future. Some people are very scared of betting on falling prices because there are some horror stories, as in you can get liquidated, you can lose all your money. And all of this is true. You have to have proper risk management. You have to short the right altcoins. You have to use the right platforms. But in order to do the right thing, I have published more than 100 tutorial videos, again, for the members of this channel. We are also discussing various trades. I share my own trades, of course, as well. And so if you want to try it out, it's currently $125 per month. There's also a 1-week money back guarantee. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first week and I will refund you 100%, no questions asked. If it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you next time on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.